Is the world getting better or worse? In other words, are we progressing or declining? Among many, if not most Westerners, there is a general sense of malaise. People on both the left and the right of the political spectrum are dissatisfied with the status quo. What explains this dissatisfaction? And is this dissatisfaction justified? According to the Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker, our pessimism can largely be attributed to media consumption. Every day, the news is filled with stories about war, terrorism, crime, pollution, inequality, drug abuse, and oppression. According to Pinker, this gives us an inaccurate picture of the state of the world. To quote him, "Whether or not the world really is getting worse, the nature of news will interact with the nature of cognition to make us think that it is. News is about things that happen, not things that don't happen. We never see a journalist saying on the camera, 'I'm reporting live from a country where a war has not broken out, or a city that has not been bombed, or a school that has not been shot up.' In other words, the 'if it bleeds, it leads' approach to reporting gives people an inaccurate perception of the state of the world. How then do we accurately appraise the state of the world? To quote Pinker once again, the answer is to count. How many people are victims of violence as a proportion of the number of people alive? How many are sick? How many starving? How many poor? How many oppressed? How many illiterate? How many unhappy? And are those numbers going up or down? A quantitative mindset, despite its nerdy aura, is in fact the morally enlightened one. That is to say, human flourishing can be measured and quantified. If the data suggests that people are getting healthier, wealthier, and safer, then society is, according to Pinker, making progress. What then does the data say? In regards to wealth, Pinker writes, "The story of global wealth goes as follows. Nothing, 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 boom. The world's income tripled between 1820 and 1900. 50 years later, it tripled again. Another 25 years and it tripled again. 33 years later, it once more increased by a magnitude of 3. Thus, the data suggests that the world has been getting wealthier. Likewise, data seems to suggest that there has been a decline in war deaths and undernourishment. These are just some of the many graphs that Pinker cites throughout his 2 books. All the graphs that he cites seem to suggest that the world is, in fact, getting better. This idea was enthusiastically received by the general public, Bill Gates, and the party of Davos. Not everyone, however, shared this enthusiasm. The probabilist, Nassim Taleb, critiqued Pinker's findings. To quote Taleb, "Pinker's severe mistake is one of standard, naive empiricism. In order to understand what Taleb means by this, we must look at his 2007 work, The Black Swan. In the 3rd chapter of The Black Swan, Taleb introduces a thought experiment. To quote him, "Assume you round up 1,000 people randomly selected from the general public and have them stand next to each other in a stadium. Imagine the heaviest person you can think of and add him to that sample. Assuming he weighs 3 times the average, between 400 and 500 pounds, he will rarely represent more than a very small fraction of the weight of the entire population. In this case, about 0.5%. Consider by comparison the net worth of the 1,000 people you lined up in the stadium. Add to them the wealthiest person to be found on the planet, say Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. Assume his net worth is close to 80 billion, with the total capital of the others around a few million. How much of the total wealth would he represent? 99.9%? For someone's weight to represent such a share, he would need to weigh 50 million pounds. This thought experiment demonstrates a simple yet significant fact. Certain phenomena, such as height, weight, IQ, or the income of a baker or small restaurant owner, can be accurately measured. In other words, that which is found in our ancestral environment can be accurately measured. Modern phenomena, on the other hand, cannot be easily measured because the average is almost entirely determined by extreme outliers, such as Bill Gates. In other words, in our modern and complex environment, A single observation can affect the average in a disproportionate way. You should, therefore, be suspicious of the knowledge you derive from data when it attains to modern phenomena. Taleb illustrates this point with another thought experiment. To quote him, "Consider a turkey that is fed every day. Every single feeding will firm up the bird's belief that it is the general rule of life to be fed every day by friendly members of the human race, looking out for its best interests, as a politician would say. On the afternoon of the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, something unexpected will happen to the turkey. It will incur a revision of belief." Taleb calls this the turkey problem. The turkey problem can be generalized to any situation where the same hand that feeds you can be the one that wrings your neck. Taleb critiques Pinker for popularizing and promoting turkey think. Take, for example, Pinker's idea of the long peace. The long peace refers to the fact that for the past 70 years, wars between great powers have basically gone away. Pinker attributes the long peace to democracy, trade, and international society. However, it could be argued that the long peace is in fact attributable to the nuclear deterrent, in which case the peace is accompanied by the risk of absolute annihilation. The long peace could be invalidated by a single extreme event, in this case a nuclear war. To quote Taleb, "The error Pinker made in his conclusion is to believe that tail events and the mean are somehow different animals, not realizing that the mean includes these tail events. Further, for fat-tailed variables, the mean is almost entirely determined by extremes. If you are uncertain about the tail events, then you are uncertain about the mean. It is thus incoherent to say that violence has dropped off, but maybe not the risk of tail events. It would be like saying that nuclear weapons are very safe, as they only kill a small percentage of the time." The modern world is increasingly determined by rare events, such as the invention of the internet and the nuclear bomb. The rarer the event, the less able we are to forecast it. And yet, these events have the biggest impact. They end up determining the average in a disproportionate way. You should, therefore, be suspicious of the knowledge you derive from data and past observation. And yet, we appear to be doing the opposite. The complexity of our society makes it almost impossible to forecast and predict future events. And yet, government, medicine, and finance have never been more confident in their forecasting abilities. In summary, Taleb critiques Pinker for underappreciating the role of rare events. History doesn't crawl, it jumps. If you liked this video, please subscribe, and if you'd like to get in contact with me, I'll leave a link to my Twitter.